All right, I want to welcome everyone to the second episode of the Retire Ready Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're excited for you to be with us today. It's a good show. This is show number 2.
All right.
This is a big feat because that means we've already had one show under our belt. And
We'll
Aaron Gaines, one of our financial advisors here at the firm, is joining us for this show. So Aaron, we're glad for you to be with us.
Thanks for having me, David.
We were talking about this earlier where I had a couple of years ago the David Nicholas show podcast, which we were so excited about, and it's great. Maybe it'll come back out of the dustbin again, but I made it to 2 episodes, which was great. But then my son was born, and that was 2 years ago. He just turned 2 recently, 2.5. And there's not been another episode. So if we can get past 2 episodes of the Retire Ready show, that will be a feat in its own.
Already on the road, right?
I feel pretty good about it. Well, today what we're going to be talking about is how much does it really take to retire? I think for most people that are in their 30s, they're busy, they're working, they're raising families. The last thing they're thinking about, they're just trying to like cover their expenses. Much less think about, I'm going to retire with $2 million at 65.
Yep.
And so, and you get it, right? You're a husband. You and your wife have a daughter. How old's?
Yeah, she's actually a year and almost 2 years old.
Almost 2 years old.
Yep.
Most babies love me, but for whatever reason, Alina, we were at a conference and I saw your wife and Alina, and I was walking up and I was like, "Hey, baby girl," and she saw me and beelined it the other direction in tears. So
yeah, she's really, really clingy right now.
Must be my face.
It can't be your face.
That's probably what it is. But we're working hard. We're raising families, and so I think the question I want to talk through today is like, how much does it take to retire? So if you're someone that's 35 years old, how much do you really need to retire? Let's just say you've got a household income right now of $100,000 a year, which is a great household income.
Yep.
And how much should you be saving? But really, how much do you need? So maybe we can start there.
Yeah, I would say that most important things that you need to realize when you want to retire is number 1, when you want to retire, and number 2 is what kind of lifestyle do you want to have in retirement. So, just say you're 35 today, you want to retire at 65. And you'll say your life expectancy is 95.
Okay, so 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years, 7% rate of return.
Which that's like a weird question. Like, when do you want us to plan for you to die?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
But we won't be here forever. But let's just say you live till 95.
At least 95. Yeah. So 3% inflation rate comes out to be about $2.5 million.
You'll need $2.5 million. $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Okay. See, that number. That's a big number.
Yeah, it is.
If you really are someone that's young and you're saving, or maybe you're 25 years old, you got your first job, that seems so. How do you get there? Because that seems like what does someone have to do right now if they're 35 years old to get to $2.5 million in 30 years? And
it can seem a lot, because it's all about time in the market. I mean, you got 30 years for the market to do its thing.
It's a long time.
But I think the math comes out to be about $2,000 a month.
$2,000 a month of what you would need to save.
You got to save about $2,000 a month.
So 24% of your household income. So if you're $100,000 of income, you're saving, you'd have to save 24% of your income at what rate of return?
7% rate of return. So
7% rate of return.
But that's only $100,000. Like you want $100,000 in retirement. So if you want 85, that number is going to look a lot lower.
Okay. Are you? I don't know. Well, can you show that? What if you only want $80,000 a year in today's dollars in retirement? How much would you need to save?
That'd be about $1.5 million.
Okay.
So about $1 million less.
Okay. Do you know how much you would need to save though? I don't know if that's an easy number to calculate. So if you just want to get to, if you just need 1.5 million.
1.5.
Like what? There's probably not a way to do it backwards, because not that I think everyone should have a goal of getting to $2.5 million at retirement, but it can almost be discouraging.
It can be when
you're like, I'm never going to get to that number. So, I'm just going to spend money on. I got to spend money on my family, my kids. Yeah. So why put away for retirement? But so what's that medium then? Maybe $80,000.
Yeah. So $80,000, 1.5 million. You got to have saved about $1,000 a month. If you can save that.
Okay. And is that starting with a certain amount at 35?
Yeah, I just said about around 20,000.
So if you have 20 grand in a retirement account, you save $1,000 a month, which is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's 12% of your income. But I would say if you're tithing 10%, think of your retirement savings at a minimum 10%.
Yep.
This number's 12%, and I think that's probably the right number. So you tithe 10, you save 10, you live off 80%. And that's really what it's going to take. Now, this is for someone that's starting at 35.
Yeah.
What if you are smart and you've been diligent? What if you started at 25? So at 25 years old, $2,000 a month.
Okay.
Where does that get us?
So if you're 25, you want to retire at 65.
Yeah, so you have 40 years of savings.
Yep. Then you really only need about $700 a month if you start at 25.
See, that is huge.
Yeah.
It's just crazy what of a difference that is starting at 25. Now, what if you let's just say you did the same $1,000 a month at 25. How much in retirement income do you have at 65?
At 65, you got about $2.8 million.
So almost $3 million.
Yeah, almost $3 million.
Okay.
Yep.
That's huge. So anyways, I think the takeaway here is, one, it does take a lot of money to retire.
Yep, for sure.
If you want $80,000 a year in retirement in today's dollars, you need more than $1.5 million saved for retirement.
Yep, about 1.5, 1.7, that range. Yep.
Yeah. I think and for some of us, you may inherit money. You may come from a family where you'll get some inheritance, which helps, but you don't want to rely on that.
Yeah.
You want to be able to know, hey, for me and my family, here's what we need to retire. But that's the amount that's going to take to get us there.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Well, let's just say then you've now made it. You're 65 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You've been saving for 30 years. What are some of the big mistakes that you see now that, say you've already saved up your retirement accounts, you've built your wealth, you're on the other side of it. What are some of the big mistakes that you see? Maybe run through a couple of those.
Yeah, because when you're saving for retirement, you want to take on so much risk in the market to try to get to that 1.5.
Get a 7% return.
Yeah, for sure. But when you get to that retirement stage, it can be kind of different. Obviously, it can be scary. Obviously.
Should you own bonds in your retirement account if you're 35 years old?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't think so. Yeah. I mean, you want to be aggressive in the market. I mean, you have 20, 30 years to make money. So,
because I see that sometimes.
I do too.
So one of my friends will come in and 20% of their portfolio is in bond funds. Like, get it out.
Now. I would be invested in the market.
So 65, you're at retirement.
Yeah, at retirement. The two things I see though is, you want to make sure what your risk is in retirement. Most people know what the rate of return is per year, hopefully, but not many people know what their risk is in their portfolio. I think that's the number one factor.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So rate of return, we know. Like, how do you measure risk? Like, what is that? If someone that's 65, how would they know how much risk is in their portfolio?
Yeah, and many individuals don't know. Like, I was sitting with a couple the other day. They had about $2 million. They had 150 stock positions, 150. And they thought they were, pretty well diversified. Yeah. Because they had 150 stocks.
Was the $2 million just split up between those 150
Yeah, about 150 stocks?
So all equities.
All equities.
And how old were they?
They were about 63.
Wow.
So they were almost getting ready to retire. They had no idea that they were almost 100% in the market. So we actually did a stress test on their portfolio. The banks, they require stress tests.
Like every year.
Was
after Dodd-Frank, after 2008, they require that.
So we feel like if the banks require it, why not, investors? They need to know that too. So we ran one, and turns out if the market would have dropped like in 2008, remember that crash 40, 50%?
Yeah,
right?
2008, market lost 52%, something like that.
Their $2 million would be down about 800,000 to 800,000. So
it would drop, not that they would lose 800,000. Yeah. Or they would lose 800,000.
From 200,000 is their value today. It would be down to 800,000 value. So $1.2 million loss. And they just kind of looked at me like, wow, they did not even realize that.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So were they working with an advisor that had them in that, or were they more do it yourself?
They were working with an advisor during that point.
Got it. And that is what is so, like, you could be working with a financial advisor, paying that advisor money, and you're 63 years old, about to retire, and 100% of your portfolio could be in equities. Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah, they had no idea. They were like, I thought I was diversified. My advisor had me in 150 positions.
So what did you recommend to them? Like, not specific investments, but like, how did you structure their portfolio now that they realize that they want to make a change? Like, what does that difference look like?
Yeah, because in retirement, we're going to experience these recessions like we did in 2008 and 2000. But the difference is you're not going to be working when these happen, right?
So you don't have time to make it back.
We don't have time to make it back. So we like to structure it in a way where you have really 3 buckets, liquid for your safe money, your liquid, and then your income bucket. So we want to make sure your income bucket's protected, but still earning like 4 to 8% to pull money off in retirement.
And your income bucket is what's generating interest,
dividends, 4 to 8%.
Okay.
And then you can have your growth bucket being your long-term bucket, but they had 100% of their money in the growth bucket. So
what percentage, though, someone that's 63 or 65, how much and I know every environment, every
Yeah.
market's different. Every client situation is different because
Yeah.
their goals, their needs. But like, what do you normally on average recommend? Because you still need money in the stock market.
You
to
still
keep up
do,
with inflation.
absolutely. Yep.
But what's an appropriate amount to really have inside that growth bucket, generally speaking?
In the growth bucket, I mean, in your retirement, like probably 40% max.
Okay.
But in the income, you want like your stable investments, probably more like 55, 65 on the income bucket.
So really, on a $2 million portfolio, if 30% still in the market, it's still $600,000.
It's still $600,000.
It's still a
Yeah.
decent amount. I mean, that's still, but
Yep.
down from 2.1 million,
Yeah.
down to 600,000 or 700,000. It's still, you're still in the market, you're still in the game. But the difference is, I always say it's like if you had a farm and you just paid off your farm, and you're now generating, you've got crops that are growing, you've got income coming off your farm. Why would you mortgage your farm and bet the farm when it's already paid off?
Yeah.
You don't
That's a
need to
good
do
point.
it. So I would say, like, when you get to retirement, you don't have to bet the farm. You've made it. You've paid off your farm. You've made it to retirement. You've saved $2 million. You don't need to lose 60, 50%, God forbid, we have a market down. And it's not about being nervous or worried or concerned. It's just the reality is the average loss during a recession is
Yeah, it's around 40%. Yeah.
40% on average.
Yeah. But the NASDAQ, remember in 2000, 2002, like 80%?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The NASDAQ lost 80% of its value from 2000 to 2002.
Didn't it take till 2015?
Took 15
Yeah,
years.
15 years.
Can you imagine losing that amount of money and then it takes 15 years to get back to where you
Yeah.
started? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a big deal. So
Pretty devastating.
So I think the big takeaway is having too much risk in your portfolio. You
Yep.
see it quite a bit. I've seen it with clients that I've sat down with. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. And I would say another one is just like you need to know what kind of fees you're paying in your portfolio. This particular couple, they were paying about a 1.5% management fee with their advisor, but then they had mutual funds inside their portfolio. So that actually came out to be, I actually have it right here. It was like 0.78% in mutual fund fees.
So on top of the 1.5.
On top of the 1.5.
I mean, if my math is correct,
Yeah.
2.25,
About
somewhere there, 2.2.
Paying almost over $50,000 a year in fees. Didn't realize it. So
That is insane.
yeah.
And the mutual fund, fund expenses are the hidden costs.
Yep.
Because it doesn't show up on your statement.
Exactly.
Do you know where they bury the mutual fund costs? They bury it in the prospectus that they send to you once a year that no one reads.
Yeah, no one's going to read that.
It goes right into the trash can.
Yeah.
So you think you're only paying 1.5%, and 1.5% is probably average.
I would say average.
1 to 1.5%.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't mind paying a fee.
Yeah.
You just want to know what are you getting for that fee.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so for them paying 2.2%,
yeah.
100% of their portfolio is in
equities
and mutual funds.
Yeah.
They're not really getting a whole lot for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, 2.2 million, almost 2.2 million in fees are in fees.
2 million in retirement.
I mean, that's over $50,000 in fees. You think about over 10 years.
$500,000.
But then the value, if the market does go down, not only you're down $500,000 in fees, but you're also down in
the market
losses. So it does carry up.
I like to call that wealth leakage.
Yep.
It's money that's going out of your account that it's kind of hidden, silent. You don't see it. But in retirement, when you're on a fixed budget generally, and there's no other, you're not working, you don't have wages coming in, you've got to know where your money's going. And again, I don't mind paying fees to professionals. Right, we pay for you want a nice car, you're going to pay money for a nice car. You want a nice house, you're going to pay money for a nice house. That's okay. You just don't want to overpay when all of your money is just in stocks and there's no planning, there's no risk management in place. And I think that's really the key there.
Yeah, I would say those two things are probably the biggest things I see daily.
Yeah.
That you just got to make sure that you know the fees and what kind of risk is inside your portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this assumption that the stock market only goes up.
Yeah. Last 10 years.
What's the return of the stock market over the last 10 years?
It's like 300%.
Yeah, it's like 270%, somewhere there. So the stock market, S&P 500 is up over 270% over the last decade.
That is wild.
So anyone that was in the market, or the majority of people, depending on how you're invested, but the majority of you that were invested in an S&P 500 index fund, you'd be up close to 300% over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And the question is always, what's the next 10 years going to be like?
Yeah.
And we looked at this, but lost decades, meaning lost decades are a period of time where the stock market is lower 10 years later than where it started.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to be careful because, again, I hope I'm wrong, but the setup seems to be that we could be on the verge of another lost decade.
Yeah. I would think, we have a lot of things going on right now. We have high inflation. We have national debts, I think, $32 trillion?
It's insane.
Potential higher tax rates coming.
That's right.
The most recent lost decade, was it 99?
Like 2000 to 2010.
2010,
right,
yeah. So you put in $1.99, your dollar is actually worth 90 cents or so
10 years later.
10 years later. So
that's insane.
It's very important, if we do experience a lost decade, those first 10 years are vital to make sure you don't run out of money.
And I always ask this question, why did the stock market go up 270% in the last 10 years? Because that is just almost, it's mind-blowing how much the market is up. Why last 10 years did the market go up 270%?
So if you remember in 2008, back when the housing crisis, you probably, what were the CD rates paying back then? Like 1 or 2%?
Well,
was zero risk?
Well, in 2000, CD rates were paying like 6%.
In 2000, yeah.
But in 08, when we had the recession, rates plummeted.
They plummeted, yep. And I would say investors were not going to the bank because 2% is not going to cut it for rate of return wise.
I don't even think you could get 2%.
If that,
yeah.
1%.
I think even a couple of years ago, if you went to a 1 year CD at the bank, barely 1%,
like 0.70 or something.
0.70%. Yeah.
But what investors did actually, they were like, 1% is not going to cut it for me. They actually moved their money to the market to take on risk because they knew they could achieve on average around 8-9% per year.
That's right.
Even though that their risk could be down 40%, they're willing to bet that, right? So, but I would say things have changed recently because over the last year the Fed raised rates 7 times.
That's right.
So
that's right.
There's actually vehicles out there that can generate 6 to 8% with little to no risk now.
And that right there, what you just said, because the Federal Reserve over the last decade kind of skewed the markets.
Yeah.
They kept interest rates so low, that investors were forced to go into the stock market. Because you said, you couldn't go to the bank, barely earn 1% of the bank. No one's putting their money at 1%. That's just not enough.
I know, I'm not doing that.
Retirement.
1%. Yeah.
So what happened is more Americans took on risk. It pushed the stock market up.
Yeah.
But now there's this thing called, that was called TINA. There is no alternatives.
Yep, TINA.
Well, now there's a lot of alternatives. Mm-hmm. Bonds are paying 5% now.
Yeah.
You've got insurance companies that are paying 7%.
Yep.
So you've got all of these competing choices for investors where you don't have to go to the stock market now to get a good return. You still need money in the market long term. It's the best wealth generating tool I think out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference why I think the next 10 years investors will struggle is because there are so many more options now that can pay you 5, 6, 7, 8% per year without the volatility and without the risk of the market. And that's why I think the market struggles over the next 10 years. Probably leads us into a lost decade for markets.
Yeah, because if people are putting their money in the fixed income space, right, or the alternatives, is money being pulled out of the market to generate that place? Exactly. And that's where we may see market volatility even more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I think this is important. Obviously, there's things that you got to think of when you're starting to save for retirement.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think most people are unaware with how much it takes to retire. It's a few $1 million, assuming you don't inherit any other large assets. That's really what it's going to take. Even just to generate $80,000 a year in today's dollars, it's $1.5 million. Is what you need at a
1.5,
including Social Security. Most people don't have pensions today. But so it's important to know, you got to start saving.
Yeah.
If you're 35 years old and you have no money in a retirement account, you got to start.
Absolutely.
Right now, you've just got to slowly start forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah.
The other thing is now when you get to retirement, is just knowing, hey, what are the risks in my portfolio? Mm-hmm. Do I have hidden risks? But also, what are the fees I'm paying? And those two areas right there can really just make a big difference when it comes to retirement.
Well said. Yeah.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you tuning in and joining us for another week of Retire Ready. It's been a great show. If you have questions on, what do I need to save for retirement, or maybe you're at retirement and you would like to know more, you can go to our website, which is nicholaswealth.com. We are excited that you joined us this week. We are hopeful that we'll be here right again next week for our third episode.
Hey, well, we're already beating the last two, right?
Should we have champagne that we made it to 3 episodes? Something to celebrate that. So we're excited. So, well, Aaron, man, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate all our listeners tuning in. We'll see you hopefully next week for another week of the Retire Ready podcast. We'll see you then.